The relationship between Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce has emerged as one of the most influential cultural phenomena at the intersection of music and professional sports. Far from being a typical celebrity romance, their connection has generated measurable impact across entertainment, the NFL, media coverage, and consumer behavior worldwide. In a short span of time, their names have dominated search trends, headlines, and social conversations, positioning them as a defining power couple of the modern era. Taylor Swift stands as one of the most powerful figures in global music. With record-breaking album sales, unprecedented streaming numbers, and a world tour that reshaped live entertainment economics, her influence extends well beyond the charts. Every public appearance, artistic decision, or personal milestone becomes a global talking point. Travis Kelce, meanwhile, represents the pinnacle of professional American football. As a star tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs and a multiple-time Super Bowl champion, Kelce is widely regarded as one of the most dominant and charismatic athletes of his generation. Public attention intensified when Swift was first seen attending Kansas City Chiefs games. What initially appeared to be a personal gesture quickly evolved into a cultural moment. Television ratings for NFL broadcasts surged, particularly among younger female viewers. Sales of Travis Kelce's jersey spiked dramatically, and social media engagement surrounding the league reached new levels. Analysts noted that the crossover appeal between pop music fans and professional football audiences was unprecedented in scale. The NFL itself became an unexpected beneficiary of Swift's presence. Her appearances in stadium suites and broadcast cutaways introduced the league to a global pop audience that had not traditionally engaged with American football. At the same time, Travis Kelce's profile expanded far beyond sports media. He became a recognizable name in mainstream entertainment news, international publications, and lifestyle discussions, reinforcing his status as more than just an elite athlete. Major media outlets have framed the relationship as a case study in cultural convergence. Music and sports, two industries that often operate in parallel, suddenly began amplifying one another. Swift's global fanbase brought fresh attention to NFL games, while Kelce's athletic success added a new dimension to Swift's public narrative. This reciprocal visibility has been described by branding experts as a rare alignment of influence, timing, and authenticity. Beyond viewership and publicity, the economic ripple effects have been significant. Sponsors and advertisers adjusted campaigns to reflect the heightened visibility surrounding both figures. Brands associated with the NFL, fashion, and entertainment capitalized on the moment, recognizing the value of a narrative that resonated across demographics. Every public outing, from game day appearances to post-match celebrations, became high-value content in the digital economy. Despite the intense spotlight, both Swift and Kelce have maintained a strong professional focus. Swift continued her tour schedule and musical projects without disruption, while Kelce sustained elite performance levels on the field. Observers noted that the relationship did not dilute their individual brands, but instead reinforced them. Rather than overshadowing their careers, the partnership appeared to enhance their public perception as confident, grounded, and successful figures. Cultural commentators have described Swift and Kelce as emblematic of a new era of celebrity influence. Their relationship illustrates how personal narratives, when aligned with professional excellence, can transcend traditional media boundaries. Swift brings storytelling, emotional connection, and creative authority. Kelce brings competition, discipline, and athletic achievement. Together, they form a narrative that feels both aspirational and relatable to a broad audience. As the year progressed, multiple international outlets referred to them as the most influential couple in music and sports. This designation was not based solely on popularity, but on tangible outcomes: increased ratings, expanded audiences, and sustained global attention. Their presence altered conversations within both industries, prompting discussions about cross-market engagement and the evolving nature of fame. The story of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce ultimately extends beyond romance. It reflects a broader shift in how modern celebrity operates, where influence is measured not only by visibility, but by impact. Whether their cultural dominance continues to grow or eventually stabilizes, their partnership has already left a lasting imprint on global pop culture and professional sports. The world continues to watch, aware that this is not just a relationship, but a moment that redefined influence in the contemporary media landscape. Building on that momentum, industry analysts began to examine the phenomenon not as a fleeting trend, but as a sustained shift in audience behavior. Data firms tracking television ratings, social media sentiment, and consumer purchasing patterns noted that the Swift-Kelce effect showed unusual durability. Unlike short-lived viral moments, interest did not spike and collapse. Instead, it stabilized at a higher baseline, suggesting long-term influence rather than temporary hype. One of the most striking developments was the internationalization of NFL attention. In markets where American football traditionally struggled to gain traction, search interest and highlight consumption increased noticeably following Swift's repeated appearances at games. For global audiences already familiar with Taylor Swift as a cultural icon, Travis Kelce became an entry point into the sport. His on-field performances were now contextualized through a broader narrative that felt accessible, human, and emotionally engaging. From a media perspective, coverage patterns also shifted. Sports journalists began addressing pop culture implications, while entertainment reporters analyzed game outcomes with unusual familiarity. The boundaries between beats blurred. Headlines combined chart performance with playoff implications, and broadcast segments balanced technical analysis with human interest storytelling. This hybrid style proved effective in holding audience attention longer than traditional formats. Economically, the impact extended beyond direct merchandise sales. Hospitality sectors near stadiums reported increased demand during high-profile games. Social platforms experienced record engagement rates on posts featuring Swift at NFL events. Advertising inventory during broadcasts rose in value, reflecting the expanded and diversified viewer base. Marketing executives openly acknowledged that the presence of a global pop star had altered the perceived ceiling of NFL reach. The center of this dynamic remained the couple themselves, whose public demeanor consistently avoided spectacle for spectacle's sake. Their appearances were notable for restraint rather than excess. Swift was shown celebrating touchdowns, speaking with players' families, and blending naturally into the game day environment. Kelce, for his part, resisted oversharing, keeping interviews focused on team performance while acknowledging support without theatrics. This balance contributed significantly to public trust and sustained interest. Sociologists and cultural theorists weighed in as well, pointing out that the appeal of the relationship lay partly in its symbolic contrast. Swift represents creativity, narrative control, and emotional expression. Kelce represents physical mastery, teamwork, and competitive resilience. Together, they embodied a modern ideal of partnership built on mutual respect rather than dominance. For many fans, this resonance was as compelling as their professional achievements. Critically, the phenomenon also challenged long-standing assumptions about audience segmentation. The idea that sports and pop music appeal to entirely separate demographics proved increasingly outdated. Younger audiences, particularly Gen Z, demonstrated fluid consumption habits, moving seamlessly between genres, platforms, and interests. The Swift-Kelce narrative fit naturally into this landscape, offering a unified story across multiple cultural touchpoints. As playoff seasons intensified and tour schedules continued, speculation grew about the long-term implications. Would this convergence inspire future collaborations between leagues and artists? Could it reshape how athletes and musicians approach personal branding? Early indicators suggested yes. Agents and managers across both industries began referencing the case as a benchmark for organic cross-industry visibility. Importantly, the narrative also survived moments of pressure. Losses on the field, schedule conflicts, and relentless media scrutiny failed to derail public perception. Instead, each challenge reinforced the sense that this was not a manufactured storyline, but a genuine connection unfolding under extraordinary circumstances. Authenticity, often cited but rarely achieved at this scale, became the defining attribute of their public image. By the time year-end cultural retrospectives were published, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce were no longer framed as a novelty. They were cited alongside major global events that shaped media consumption trends. Think pieces analyzed how a single relationship recalibrated attention economies. Academic discussions emerged around parasocial dynamics, influence spillover, and the evolving mechanics of fame that in the broader historical context. Their impact may ultimately be remembered as a turning point. Previous celebrity couples captured attention. Few reshaped systems. This pairing demonstrated that influence in the modern era is not confined to one domain. It is additive, networked, and amplified through authenticity. Music did not overshadow sports, nor did sports diminish music. Instead, both expanded as conversations continue and new chapters unfold. One conclusion remains clear. The story of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce is not defined by romance alone, but by resonance. It is a case study in how modern culture moves, through alignment, timing, and genuine connection. Whether on stage, on the field, or in the collective imagination of millions, their presence continues to shape the narrative of contemporary influence, proving that when two cultural forces meet at the right moment, the impact can extend far beyond expectations. The scale of that impact became even clearer as institutions began to respond in measurable ways. Television networks adjusted camera strategies, allocating additional coverage to crowd reactions and celebrity presence without detracting from gameplay. Digital platforms optimized recommendation algorithms around related content, recognizing that clips featuring Swift at games or Kelce referenced in entertainment segments generated consistently higher watch times. This was no longer reactive coverage. It was structural adaptation. Financial analysts observed that the relationship effectively created a new hybrid audience category. Fans who once consumed only music content now engaged with sports analytics, while longtime NFL viewers found themselves exposed to album releases, tour news, and pop industry discussions. This crossover was not forced by marketing campaigns, but driven by narrative curiosity. Viewers wanted context, continuity, and meaning, and the Swift-Kelce storyline provided all three. The timing of the phenomenon also played a critical role. Both figures were already at career peaks when their relationship entered public view. Swift was redefining touring economics and ownership narratives in music, while Kelce was solidifying a legacy as one of the greatest players at his position. Their union did not serve as a launchpad, but as an amplifier. That distinction strengthened credibility and minimized skepticism, allowing the public to engage without fatigue. International media coverage further underscored the shift. In Europe, Asia, and South America, regions where NFL coverage typically occupies limited space, news outlets began running feature-length stories explaining American football through the lens of Swift's presence. This educational framing transformed a niche sport into an accessible spectacle. Kelce's role as both athlete and cultural translator became increasingly apparent. Meanwhile, the conversation surrounding gender dynamics in sports viewership gained renewed attention. Analysts noted that Swift's visibility challenged outdated assumptions about who sports broadcasts are for. Rather than framing new viewers as outsiders, coverage gradually normalized their presence. This reframing had long-term implications, encouraging inclusivity and expanding the cultural definition of fandom itself. From a branding perspective, the relationship became a reference point in boardrooms. Executives cited it as proof that influence cannot be engineered through exposure alone. Authentic alignment, shared momentum, and narrative coherence mattered more than scale. Attempts by other public figures to replicate the effect often fell short, reinforcing the idea that this was not a formula, but a convergence. As scrutiny intensified, so did public expectation. Every appearance was analyzed, every absence noted. Yet the narrative remained resilient because it continued to be anchored in individual excellence. Swift's performances retained critical acclaim. Kelce's statistics and leadership on the field remained elite. The story endured because its foundation was performance, not perception. By this stage, the relationship had entered what observers described as the normalization phase. It was no longer surprising, yet still compelling. This is where many viral narratives fade. Instead, the Swift-Kelce story matured, integrating into the cultural background rather than burning out. Longevity, not shock value, became its defining trait. In academic circles, media scholars began referencing the case when discussing attention economies and cross-domain influence. The relationship illustrated how modern narratives function less like linear stories and more like ecosystems. sustained by multiple entry points and reinforced by credibility. Fame, in this context, was not static. It was relational. As the season cycles continued and tour dates evolved, speculation naturally followed. Yet the core conclusion remained unchanged. The significance of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce lies not in speculation about the future, but in the documented impact of the present. They demonstrated that modern influence is cumulative, built through trust, timing, and mutual amplification. In the end, their story stands as a benchmark. It shows how two established figures, operating at the highest level of their respective fields, can intersect without dilution. Music did not lose depth, sports did not lose integrity. Instead, both gained dimension. That balance is rare, and it is why this relationship continues to be studied, discussed, and referenced long after initial headlines fade. What remains is not just a record of attention, but a shift in understanding. Influence today is not about domination of a single space, but the ability to connect worlds without forcing them together. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce achieved that organically, and in doing so, left a cultural footprint that will define discussions of celebrity, media, and power for years to come. As the narrative continued to unfold, what stood out most to observers was how consistently the story resisted saturation. In an era where public fascination often burns out quickly, the Taylor Swift-Travis Kelce phenomenon showed signs of long-term structural relevance. Media monitoring organizations reported that engagement levels remained stable even months after the initial surge, a rare indicator that public interest had evolved into habitual attention rather than episodic curiosity. This endurance prompted deeper analysis within the sports and entertainment industries. Analysts began categorizing the relationship not as celebrity news, but as a macro-level cultural driver. The logic was simple. Whenever Swift attended a game, viewership metrics responded. Whenever Kelce was referenced in music-adjacent media, his recognition index increased. These patterns repeated with remarkable consistency, suggesting a feedback loop rather than coincidence. One notable development was the shift in narrative framing by major broadcasters. Instead of treating Swift's presence as an interruption, networks integrated it seamlessly into storytelling. Camera cuts became more contextual, commentary more measured, and tone more respectful. This evolution reflected an understanding that the audience was no longer divided between sports fans and pop fans, but increasingly overlapped. The broadcast itself adapted to reflect that reality. The digital ecosystem amplified this effect. Short-form video platforms favored content that blended emotion and spectacle, and the Swift-Kelce storyline delivered both. Clips featuring crowd reactions, sideline moments, or post-game commentary regularly outperformed standard highlight reels. Algorithmic preference reinforced visibility, creating a self-sustaining cycle of discovery and redistribution. From a sociocultural standpoint, the relationship also reshaped discussions around celebrity privacy. Despite intense scrutiny, both figures maintained a controlled level of openness. They neither retreated entirely nor overshared. This calibrated transparency became part of the appeal, signaling agency rather than exploitation. For audiences accustomed to extremes, the balance felt refreshing and credible. Industry veterans pointed out that the pairing arrived at a moment of broader transition. Traditional celebrity hierarchies were already being challenged by creators, athletes, and artists who operated across platforms. Swift and Kelce did not merely adapt to this environment. They exemplified it. Their influence was not confined to albums or championships, but extended into discourse, identity, and participation. The economic implications continued to ripple outward. Secondary markets such as fashion, travel, and hospitality experienced measurable gains tied to high-profile appearances. Stadium fashion trends shifted, with Swift's game day outfits frequently analyzed and replicated. Meanwhile, Kelce's off-field visibility translated into expanded endorsement opportunities, many of which emphasized personality and storytelling over performance alone. Importantly, this expansion did not dilute credibility. Kelce's on-field discipline remained intact, and Swift's artistic output continued to command critical respect. The absence of contradiction between public narrative and professional reality reinforced trust. In a media environment quick to expose inconsistency, coherence became their strongest asset, As global attention persisted, international media reframed the story through local lenses. In Asia, the narrative emphasized Swift's cultural reach and its unexpected bridge into American sports. In Europe, coverage focused on branding, media convergence, and soft power. In each context, the relationship served as a case study rather than mere entertainment news. The phenomenon also influenced younger audiences' understanding of success and partnership. Rather than presenting a hierarchy, the relationship modeled parallel achievement. Both individuals were visibly established, independent, and aligned in momentum. Cultural commentators noted that this dynamic resonated strongly with audiences navigating evolving norms around ambition and identity. By this stage, the Swift-Kelce effect had become embedded in forecasting models. Networks anticipated viewership bumps tied to appearances. Brands timed releases and announcements around high-visibility moments. Even competing leagues and tours took note, acknowledging that attention had become more fluid and interconnected than previously assumed. Yet despite its scale, the narrative avoided collapse under its own weight. There were no abrupt pivots, no sensational reversals. The story advanced incrementally, anchored by routine excellence. That steadiness proved to be its most disruptive quality. In a culture conditioned to volatility, consistency stood out. Looking ahead, experts cautioned against framing the phenomenon as replicable. Attempts to manufacture similar cross-industry moments lacked the organic alignment present here. What made this case exceptional was not exposure, but synchronization. Two figures peaking simultaneously, each amplifying the other without dependency. As a result, the relationship entered historical comparison territory. It was no longer measured against contemporary celebrity pairings, but against inflection points in media history. Moments when attention shifted, audiences merged, and cultural boundaries softened. Few relationships had ever been discussed in those terms. In closing, the ongoing story of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce represents more than sustained popularity. It reflects a transformation in how influence operates across domains. Their connection demonstrated that modern power lies not in dominance of a single space, but in resonance across many. Music and sports did not simply intersect. They informed and expanded one another. That is why the story continues to matter. Not because it is dramatic, but because it is instructive. It reveals how culture moves when authenticity, timing, and excellence align. And as long as those conditions remain, the attention will not merely follow, it will stay. As the narrative matured, a new layer of analysis emerged around legacy and long-term cultural memory. Historians of pop culture began framing the Taylor Swift-Travis Kelce moment not as a headline-driven episode, but as a reference point for how influence is constructed in the digital age. Unlike past celebrity couples whose relevance depended on spectacle or controversy, this pairing gained traction through continuity, performance, and mutual elevation. What distinguished this phenomenon was its predictability without becoming stale. Each public appearance followed a familiar rhythm, yet retained audience interest. Swift attending a game no longer shocked viewers, but it still drew attention. Kelce acknowledging support no longer fueled speculation, but it still generated coverage. This balance between expectation and engagement is rarely sustained, and it underscored the structural strength of the narrative. Corporate behavior reflected this shift. Investment analysts tracking entertainment-adjacent equities noted correlations between major Swift Tour announcements and increased engagement in sports media stocks. While causation remained complex, the association itself was telling. The markets had begun to recognize cultural momentum as a variable worth monitoring. Influence, once abstract, was now being quantified in real time. Within the NFL, internal discussions reportedly expanded beyond short-term ratings boosts. Executives explored how to retain newly engaged demographics after the initial catalyst faded. Youth outreach initiatives, social media tone adjustments, and cross-platform storytelling strategies all evolved in response. Swift's presence did not just add viewers. It exposed gaps and opportunities in how the league communicated its identity. Similarly, the music industry observed Kelce's role with interest. His integration into mainstream pop discourse challenged assumptions about athlete branding. He was not positioned as a novelty or accessory. but as a complementary figure whose discipline and achievements reinforced the narrative rather than distracting from it. This reframing influenced how labels and management teams evaluated cross-industry visibility. Another notable outcome was the recalibration of media tone. Early coverage leaned heavily on novelty, but as months passed, reporting became more analytical. Articles focused on metrics, behavioral shifts, and systemic impact. The relationship was no longer treated as gossip, but as data. That transition marked a turning point in how celebrity influence was discussed publicly. The audience, too, evolved. Initial curiosity gave way to informed engagement. Viewers learned football terminology, followed playoff structures, and debated strategies. Sports fans, in turn, became more familiar with tour logistics, album cycles, and creative ownership discussions. This mutual literacy fostered a more integrated cultural conversation, reducing friction between fan communities. Crisis moments tested the durability of this integration. Injuries, schedule conflicts, and competitive losses introduced potential fractures in attention. Yet coverage remained measured, largely because neither figure deviated from established professional standards. Swift continued to deliver